Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have some election news out of the state of Colorado, where Republican State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer has officially filed to run for governor of the state, running last Tuesday. So this is interesting, as Colorado State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer is expected to formally announce her run on Tuesday, so by the time you're seeing this video, she would have already entered the race. And by Monday afternoon, state campaign filing showed that she had officially entered. Last month, the Colorado Times Recorder reported that 4 recently registered websites, which all are versions of Kirkmeyer for governor, have been filed, so she'll be running for this race. Now, what's interesting here is that as a member of the Republican Party, Kirkmeyer has been involved in politics since 1993 and served as a Weld County Commissioner until 2001. When she served as the acting executive director of the Development of Local Affairs, Kirkmeyer also served as a Weld Commissioner from 2008 to 2020, before she was elected to the state senate to represent District 23, which encompasses Weld and Larimore counties. She was reelected to her current seat in 2024. So this is very interesting here, and I'll be getting more into the race in just one second. But first, I just want to note something kind of interesting. Her logo kind of looks like the NHL team, the Colorado Avalanche, how they kind of have the swooping avalanche design with the mountains. It kind of looks like that. I just wanted to point that out for any political and sports fans that are watching. But Kirkmeyer entering this race is trying to do something that Republicans in Colorado have not done for a pretty long time now, which is be able to win a race in this state. Colorado, which is currently held by incumbent Democrat Governor Jared Polis, he is term limited and cannot seek a third term in office, so it is an open race. However, already the Democrats have a very strong candidate that is running, and current U.S. Senator Michael Bennet. He is running for this race to be the next governor of Colorado. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser is also running in this race. The only poll that we have thus far shows Michael Bennet leading over Phil Weiser 53-22, though this poll is sponsored by Bennett's campaign. With 25% undecided, though, more likely than not, we're going to see Michael Bennet become the Democratic nominee for this race. It should be worth noting that Phil Weiser has the endorsement of Roy Romer, the former governor of Colorado, whereas Bennet has the endorsement of fellow U.S. Senator and former Governor John Hickenlooper, 2 U.S. Representatives in Joe Neguse and Jason Crow, and some state legislatures and local officials as well. So on the Democratic side, it looks like it's going to be Michael Bennet as the Democratic candidate. On the Republican side, Kirkmeyer is joining a very competitive Republican primary. State Senator Mark Baisley, State Representative Scott Bottoms, Jason Clark, now Barb Kirkmeyer, Greg Lopez, and Jason McKessel are all running in this race. Now, all of them, from an election standpoint, hold pretty similar offices. The highest one in terms of notoriety would probably be Greg Lopez, who was a former U.S. representative from Colorado's 4th District from 2024 and 2025. He probably holds the highest office by name recognition. The rest of them being state senators or state representatives. It's going to lead to a very competitive primary without not one candidate having more name recognition, really, than the others. So Barbara Kirkmeyer is entering into a very competitive Republican primary that she certainly can win, but the question is going to be, can her or any other candidates essentially catch fire and win this Republican primary, and that is being very competitive. Now, it should be worth knowing that no polling data is currently available for this Republican primary, so at this point, really, it's anyone's guess who is going to win. As for the general election, though, this is where things get rough for the Republicans. Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, Sourdough Crystal Ball all have this race listed as solid or safe for the Democrats. A race to the White House has it as likely for the Democrats. And when you look at the state of Colorado, it is certainly not the battleground state that it used to be. In the 2024 presidential race, it voted for Kamala Harris by 11 points over Donald Trump. Back in 2020, it voted for Joe Biden by 13.5%. So this has been a over a 10-point Democratic win, 2 presidential elections in a row. Now, in 2016, Hillary Clinton did win it by 4.9%, so still a lean Democratic state, though it should be worth noting here, Trump only got 43.25% of the vote. Gary Johnson got over 5 points as the Libertarian candidate in this race. And when you look at 2020, Trump only got 41.9%, and in 24, Trump only got 43.14%. So Trump actually at 43.25 in 2016, that was the best Trump did in the state in his 3 times running for president. Now, the last time Colorado was even remotely competitive in 2012, where it was looked at as a swing state, was Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney, where Obama won by 5.4%, but Romney got a much higher percent of the vote than Trump did. Romney got up to 46.13% of the vote, Trump again only got about 43%. Back in 2008, Obama won it against McCain by 9 points, and back in 2004 was the last time Colorado voted red, where George Bush won it by 4.7%. Looking at this 2012 map, you see obviously a lot of key counties here, including the city of Denver, which is a big Democratic vote center. But for a while, what was talked about were these three counties: Adams County, Arapahoe County, and Jefferson County. These three areas were sort of looked as the key suburban centers right outside of Denver. These were the indicators of how this race was going. Back in 2004, when George Bush won here, Adams County voted for the Democrat, for John Kerry, but not by a very large margin, only about 2.3%. Arapahoe voted for Bush by 4 points. Jefferson voted for Bush by 5.2. In 2008, Obama wins Adams by 18, Arapahoe by 13, and Jefferson by 9. In 2012, they're more competitive, but Adams goes 17 points for Obama, Arapahoe goes 10 for Obama, and Jefferson goes 4.9. Now in 2024, much more blue. Harris wins Adams by 9 points, so that's smaller, but Arapahoe was a 20-point win for Harris, Jefferson a 19.5% win. So the old blueprint for Republicans to win in Colorado from back in the George Bush days, based on the 2024 presidential results, essentially appears to be gone. That's why one of the reasons you look electorally, Republicans have had struggles winning in the state. That was at the presidential level. At the governor level, it has not been any better. 2020, Democrat Jared Polis won against the Republican candidate by 19.3%, a safe Democratic win against Heidi Ganahl, a massive, massive win. And again, you see those three counties all voting for the Democrat by a large number. That was 2022. 2018, Jared Polis won against the Republican in a more competitive race by 10.6%, though again, not very competitive, the Republican getting less than 43% of the vote. 2014, the Republican wave year. The last time Republicans had a chance really at the governor level, John Hickenlooper wins by 3.3% against the Republican Bob Dupree, getting 49.3% to 45.95. Hickenlooper won back in 2010 by 14.7%. So Colorado, it's been a long time since there's been a Republican governor of the state. 2006, it went blue for the Democrats. 2002, the last time it went red at the governor level. Senate level, not been much better either. 22, Michael Bennet wins by 14.6%. 2020, John Hickenlooper defeats the Republican Senator Cory Gardner by 9.3%. 2016, Bennet wins by 5.7%, and certainly what seems to be more of a third-party vote situation there. 2014, the last time Colorado elected a Republican Senator, Cory Gardner, by 1.9% in that massive Republican midterm year. So Colorado certainly trended very much to the Democratic direction, and I don't think we're going to see a reverse of that going into 2026. Whether it's Michael Bennet or Phil Weiser, probably going to be Michael Bennet. We're expecting to see Colorado be very blue for the Democrats. For Barbara Kirkmeyer, any of the Republicans running, they have a very tough uphill battle in this race, especially running against a senator who just won by 14.6% in 2022 and succeeding a governor who just won in 2022 by 19.3%. So I think this race is going to be more competitive, but on my governor map right now, I have Colorado in the likely Democratic margin, which is in between a 5 and 15% margin of victory. I have it right now around that 13 to 14 point margin of victory at this current point in time. Maybe it gets a little bit more competitive in the last election, but again, I don't think Republicans really have much of a chance at winning this governor's race in the state of Colorado, as again, it has shifted a lot more to the Democrats in the last 10 years or so, some of the most Democratic trending states in the nation over the last 15 years. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below, tell me your thoughts and any other future video ideas you would like to see me go over. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we are talking about the 2026 Florida governor's race, and it shows that in the Republican primary, Republican Byron Donalds is having a crushing lead over his Republican opponents in the Republican primary thus far. So in a new poll that has just been released by the American Promise, it shows that Byron Donalds starts out with a very, very commanding lead here. On the initial ballot, Donald starts out with 40% of the vote His next closest challengers, Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, has 2%, and Paul Renner, another Republican who just entered the race, has 2%, with 54% undecided. Now, for the poll, when it says the informed ballot, Donalds at that point then jumps up to 57%, Collins remains at 2, Renner's at 1, 38% still undecided or unsure in that part of the poll. Now, the informed ballot, a theoretical ballot voters consider, is after hearing more information about each candidate, including that President Trump has endorsed Byron Donalds in this governor's race. So the candidates, if you're not familiar, are Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, U.S. Representative Byron Donalds is flirting with the bid, and former House Speaker Paul Renner, who did just launch his campaign for governor last week. Donald's name value has also been increasing. A survey from the American Promise conducted in January found that 38% of voters said they knew enough about Donalds to make a confident choice at the ballot box. Meanwhile, 40% said they'd never heard of him, and 22% claimed to have no opinion of him. This month, Donald's qualified name identification hit 52%, a overall 14-point uptick, while his no opinion or never heard of him metrics both dipped. Overall, Donald in this poll had a net favorability of plus 32 points in January and now 43% in this month. This spells very bad news, this article points, in the race for the other candidates. That Ryan Tyson, political strategist, noted that Collins and Renner both have qualified name IDs below 15%, while also having significantly less campaign cash to spend on popularizing themselves. For Donalds to do this without a statewide media buy is a resounding accomplishment, Tyson said. Despite the sizable lead, we see signs that Donalds still potentially has more room to grow. Tyson added that Donalds is particularly strong in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Southwest Florida media markets. Florida is a very big, very expensive state to compete in, Tyson said, so challengers will need substantial resources just to be competitive. So this is very interesting, because we've been talking about the Florida governor's race for the last few months or so, especially after President Trump gave his endorsement to U.S. Representative Byron Donalds. Right now, Charles Burkett, the mayor of Surfside, Florida, is in this race, and Paul Renner, the former Speaker of the Florida House of Representatives from 2022 to 2024. Now, Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, who's just appointed by Ron DeSantis a few weeks ago to be the Lieutenant Governor, has expressed interest in potentially running in 2026. Now, Collins would be viewed essentially as the heir apparent to Governor Ron DeSantis, who Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump obviously have had their feuds in the past, and DeSantis even running for president in 2024 against Donald Trump in that primary, and how everything nasty shook out in that one. And even though Trump and DeSantis have seemed to have made up during the 2024 election, general election and after the election, still, there could be a little bit of bad blood there between Trump and DeSantis, especially with Trump endorsing Donalds, and DeSantis and Donalds, I do believe, having a little bit of a behind-the-scenes feud going as well over Donald supporting Trump in 2024 and not DeSantis. So Donald certainly has the endorsement of Trump, and DeSantis would like someone to run against him. Now, his Lieutenant Governor, Jay Collins, is the first person that comes to mind. Though Collins in this poll only having 2% is obviously not very good news for DeSantis and any Republican hoping to take down Donalds. Now, one name that's been very close to watch for important months now is the First Lady of Florida, Casey DeSantis, who the early polling showed that in a Casey DeSantis versus Byron Donalds matchup, that one could actually be a very competitive race, where depending on the poll you look at, Casey DeSantis versus Byron Donalds is very close, and Casey DeSantis at times is actually leading. In a University of North Florida poll from the middle of July, DeSantis led Donalds by about 3 points. From St. Pete polls, Byron Donalds was leading over DeSantis by roughly about 7 to 8 points. Target market research from back in May had DeSantis up 1, and from back in April had DeSantis plus 6. Fabrizio Lee and Associates, President Trump's top pollster, had Donalds leading over DeSantis by about 4 points. So the race between DeSantis and Donalds, if they were to face off, could actually be very competitive, and one that DeSantis could win and Donalds could lose. But if Casey DeSantis decides to not run, and right now we really don't have any information saying she will or won't, Jay Collins would likely be the next DeSantis disciple up to enter this race. And if this poll is any indicator, it would not go very well for the DeSantis camp. Now, 54% of the vote is undecided, so there is a mathematical possibility Collins could get a lot of support and ultimately defeat Donalds in the primary, but as Donalds is starting out at 40% and Collins only has 2, the odds of that happening are certainly a lot less than, say, Casey DeSantis defeating Byron Donalds in the Republican primary. If DeSantis decides not to run and the primary becomes Donalds versus Collins versus Renner, like this poll suggests, I think Byron Donalds wins this without really too much of a problem and becomes the Republican nominee for governor. Now, on the Democratic side, the only Democrat currently declared running is former Republican Representative David Jolly, who switched to become a Democrat. He is in this race. Other publicly expressed interest candidates include Jerry Demings, the mayor of Orange County, and the husband of the former U.S. Representative and 2022 Senate candidate Val Demings. Al Lawson, former U.S. Representative from the 5th District, has expressed interest, and Angie Nixon, a state representative from the 13th District. Now, potential candidate Daniela Levine-Cava, the mayor of Miami-Dade County, could also potentially run in this race. Several Democrats have already ruled out a potential bid, including Jason Pizzo, who is running in this race not as a Democrat, but as an independent. So Pizzo is officially declared and running for this race. Right now, this is listed as solid Republican from Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Sabado Crystal Ball, all safe for the Republicans, though Race to the White House has the race as tilt for the Republicans. The only poll that's been done at the general election level for Byron Donalds and David Jolly shows 32% of the vote undecided, with Donalds leading by about 6 points. Certainly still a very long way to go in this. On the hypothetical side, with Donalds versus Levine-Cava and Pizzo, Donalds lead by 4 points. So essentially, we really don't have many polls to go off of in this race. But given Florida's recent election history, where we saw at the presidential race, it voted for Donald Trump over Kamala Harris by 13.1%, and you saw pretty much every single part of the state trend red from 2024, literally every single county trending to the GOP, including the major population areas like Miami-Dade, shifting 18.8% from 2020 to 2024. Hillsborough, where Tampa is, shifting 9.9%. You can look up here to Osceola, I believe it is, in Orange County, where Orlando is, 9.5. You see Broward and Palm Beach trending. This is where Mar-a-Lago is, 12 points towards Trump. So Florida has become a very red trending state in recent years, and Trump won it by 13 points. At the governor level, DeSantis won it in 2022 by 19.4% against former Democratic governor Charlie Crist. Well, I guess he was Republican governor at the time, Charlie Crist, in that race. To remind you, back in 2018, DeSantis only won against Democrat Andrew Gillum by 0.39%. And now Florida, seeing how much of a Republican state that it is, certainly the Republicans have a very big chance of winning this race. I just recorded a video about the state of Colorado and how I mentioned how this state has been one of the most Democratic trending states over the last 15 years. Florida has to be the most Republican trending state over the last 15 years, sort of the inverse of Colorado and how red the state has become. So certainly going to be an important race to watch for, but whichever Republican, whether it's Donalds or DeSantis or Jay Collins, wins the Republican primary, the chances of them winning this governor's race essentially are all but locked up. And again, when you look at what Trump did, winning Hillsborough, almost winning Palm Beach, winning Miami-Dade by 11.4, going back to, say, 2012 for Obama versus Romney, I mean, the map almost looks unrecognizable. Safe Miami-Dade, safe Broward, safe Palm Beach, Hillsborough, 6.7 for Obama. Even 2016, Hillsborough voting 7 points for Clinton, Miami-Dade, 30 points, Broward, 35, Palm Beach, 15.4. 2020, Hillsborough, 7 points for Biden, Palm Beach, 13 points, Broward, 30 points, Miami-Dade, 7.4. And now 2024, how red the state has become, the Democrats do not have much of a chance, really, in this governor's race. So for my 2026 governor's map, I currently have the Florida governor's race starting out in the safe Republican category, meaning I expect the Republicans to win by more than 15% when everything is said and done. I think Byron Donalds will win this Republican primary, and I do think he'll win this race by more than 15%. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts on this video and any other video ideas you would like to see me cover. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, thank you. Make sure to hit like and subscribe, and hope to see you in a future video. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today we're talking about the state of Georgia, where Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensberger is planning to seek higher office in 2026. So in our article from Georgia, it goes over the latest details here that Brad Raffensberger is looking to run in one of the Republican primaries in 2026. Now, he does not specifically say whether he'll be running for governor or Senate, but rather expressing interest in running for one of the two. Raffensberger is a name that you may be familiar with. He is the Republican Secretary of State of Georgia, who he and Governor Brian Kemp obviously were involved with President Trump and his claims in the 2020 election, and where Trump said that he wanted to find more votes out of Georgia and essentially stop Joe Biden from winning the state of Georgia in 2020 and everything that went on there. Obviously, there are better videos and such and better information sources to look up that situation than I have or I know, but if you want to check that out, you can. But the point being, Brad Raffensberger and Brian Kemp both multiple times have caught the ire of President Trump in recent years. So much so, President Trump is supported and endorsed party challengers and primary challengers to both Kemp and Raffensberger in the 2022 midterm elections. Now, ultimately, Trump was not successful. Both Kemp and Raffensberger won their primaries and the general elections in Georgia in 2022. And now Raffensberger is looking at potentially running for office in 2026. So I'm going to break this down going over the Senate and governor's races. Starting with the governor's race, this one already has a little bit of clarity because right now Republican Attorney General Chris Carr is running in this race. Lieutenant Governor of Georgia Burt Jones is running in this race, and Republican Ken Yasgur, a member of the Army National Guard for Georgia, is also running. Now, Brad Raffensperger is the only other Republican to express interest in running in this race. Now, President Trump has already made his opinions known on this race and has endorsed the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Georgia, Burt Jones, to be the nominee in this race. We don't have any polling really to go off of thus far, aside from one poll from back in 2023, so we essentially don't have much. But right now, Burt Jones, Chris Carr are fighting it out. Brad Raffensperger entering into this mix could be interesting because Burt Jones is likely going to get a lot of the President Trump wing, the MAGA wing of the Republican Party. Chris Carr, the Georgia Attorney General, and Brad Raffensperger would most likely be splitting the Brian Kemp swing of the Republican Party. And Brian Kemp, he's already made his opinions known on the Senate side of things. Kemp has not yet endorsed a candidate on the governor's side. So if Raffensperger does decide to run, it's possible Kemp could make his endorsement for either Raffensperger or Chris Carr in this race. It's going to be very tough because in pretty much any other state, the Republican primary, a candidate getting endorsed by President Trump all but essentially locks up the Republican primary. But Georgia in 2022 showed that both Brian Kemp and Brad Raffensperger were able to win the Republican primaries despite having a candidate get the endorsement of Trump and lots of the ire of Trump as well. So if any Republican knows how to beat a candidate with Trump's endorsement, it would technically be Kemp and Raffensperger. So that could be something potentially interesting to watch for in 2026 if Raffensperger were to enter the Republican primary. As for the general, they would likely be facing off against one of these Democrats, Keisha Lance Bottoms, Jason Estevez, Derek Jackson, or Mike Thurmond. This race is very wide open right now. Keisha Lance Bottoms seems to be the leading Democrat at this current point in time. Stacey Abrams and Jeff Duncan both could potentially enter this race as well. As for this race, no polling done yet, but it's listed as toss-up from Cook Politico and Race to the White House, tilt or lean for the Republicans from Inside Elections, and Sabado's Crystal Ball. So no matter which Republican wins, if Raffensperger was able to win the primary, I think it would certainly be very close at the general election level. Republicans could narrowly win it, but I do think it would be very close regardless. At the Senate level, this is where things are going to be a little bit tougher for Raffensperger. Because right now in the Republican primary, they're going up against Democratic Senator John Ossoff. He'll be the Democratic nominee. On the Republican side, U.S. Representatives Buddy Carter, Mike Collins, and Derek Dooley, the former Tennessee head coach, are all running in this race. Now, what's interesting here is that Governor Kemp has already made an endorsement in this race. He has already endorsed Derek Dooley. So if Raffensperger is hoping for an endorsement from the governor to help his chances in the Republican primary, that's not going to be happening from Kemp as he's already endorsed Dooley. So if he were to run for Senate, he'd essentially be on his own. Now, President Trump has not weighed in to the Senate race on whether to endorse Mike Collins or Buddy Carter, or for that matter, President Trump could also endorse Dooley as well. Though there was media reports that Trump was not happy with Kemp endorsing Dooley without giving a heads up to Trump or discussion about which candidate to support in this race. So that could potentially be something that keeps Trump from endorsing Dooley. But Carter or Collins at this current point in time, I would say, are more likely to get the endorsement of President Trump. And if they don't, for some reason, it would be because another Republican that is very close to the president would be entering this race. Though that at this point, that's more just speculation than something that would definitely happen. So at the Senate level, Brad Raffensperger would have I would argue, a tougher chance at winning this Republican primary. He would have to clear the Trump-endorsed candidate in Derek Dooley, one of the likely Trump-endorsed candidates in either Buddy Carter or Mike Collins. If I had to really make a guess at this current point in time, I think Mike Collins has been polling better. I think he'd be more likely to get the endorsement from President Trump than Derek Dooley or Buddy Carter would. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Raffensberger would then be running against Kemp's candidate and Trump's candidate in that scenario. So the Georgia Senate side of things, I don't think Raffensberger really has as much of a chance, but he could ultimately decide to do this as well. As for this general election, also is going to be very close, but in this one, it is a toss-up from Inside Elections, Cook Political Report, and Sabro's Crystal Ball. Race to the White House has it as a lean for the Democrats. In the early polling, it shows that Jon Ossoff has been leading over pretty much every single Republican in the recent polls by varying numbers. The most recent poll from TIPP Insights shows Ossoff leading Carter by 4 points, leading Collins by 1, and leading Dooley by about 5. Now, some hypothetical polling has happened actually for Raffensberger versus Ossoff. One poll from Signal, a Republican pollster from back in May, showed a tied race for Ossoff and Raffensberger. The rest of them showed Ossoff leading Raffensberger by a pretty healthy margin. The only Republican candidate, mind you, that even had a chance in the polling, the early polling against Ossoff, was Brian Kemp. Now that we know Kemp is not running, that point essentially doesn't really matter, but Kemp was the only Republican that really showed much of a chance at beating him. Though the Signal poll showing a tied race is the closest we've seen a Republican do since really Collins being down by 1 point. So Raffensberger, I think if he were able to get to the general election for the Georgia Senate race, may actually give the Republicans a stronger chance at winning the general than some of the other Republican candidates would, though I think the chances of him doing that are going to be a lot tougher. So that's where things stand on the Raffensberger side of things in terms of the Republican primaries for both Senate and governor. I think as the Secretary of State, someone that's caught in the ire of President Trump, I think Raffensperger's best chance at winning a Republican primary involves one where he has to run against candidates that probably gives him a better chance. And that would be the governor's race. Because yes, Burt Jones, as the lieutenant governor, having Trump's endorsement. The other Senate race does not have the endorsement yet from President Trump. But Governor Kemp is not endorsed in the governor's race either. And that may present a potential lane for Raffensperger to enter this race, run for governor, have the endorsement from Kemp, and may give him a little bit of a boost. Where Burt Jones having the endorsement from Trump is certainly going to do him a very great deal and a great number here, but it gives Raffensperger a potential lane at running against Burt Jones, and maybe he can convince Chris Carr to exit the race, may give Raffensperger a better chance on that one. As for Georgia politically, it is almost as 50-50 of a state as you'll find in the United States. It voted for Donald Trump by 2.2% in 2024. It voted for Joe Biden by 0.24% in 2020, even though in 2016 it voted for Trump by 5.1%. At the Senate level, it's currently represented by 2 Democrats. Raphael Warnock won by 2.8% in 2022 in the runoff for Georgia, and the other Senate seat, Jon Ossoff, won by 1.2% in 2020. So both very close Democratic wins, 2 Senate cycles in a row. At the governor level, Brian Kemp won re-election by 7.5% in 2022. In 2018, he won against the Democrat Stacey Abrams for the first time by 1.4%. In an open race in a midterm year that should favor the Democrats, I'm expecting a race similar to the 2018 race, where Kemp won by 1.4% against Abrams. I'm expecting a result similar to that, more so than I am the 2022 race. So that's where Georgia stands sort of on the election side of things. And when you look at Georgia on the map, really all eyes are on Fulton County. This is where Atlanta is, and its surrounding counties like Cobb County, Douglas County, Clayton, Henry, Rockdale, Gwinnett, and even Fayette County. You're looking at these margins in these areas, and that's where the election is going to be won or lost for the Republicans or Democrats. That's the main area to watch for in Georgia. So as for Raffensperger's chances on the Senate side of things right now, my most recent prediction, I had Jon Ossoff winning by over 1 point but under 5, so that would go into the lean Democratic category. I do think if Ossoff and Raffensperger faced off, ironically that rhymes with Ossoff, we could see Georgia get very close, where Raffensperger could win this race. I do think ultimately, even if it fell under 1 point, I do think Ossoff would still be narrowly favored to hold on, though. He is the incumbent in this race. it would be very close. There would also be likely some Republican vote splitting of very pro-Trump Republicans not wanting Raffensberger to be the nominee. I think that would split enough and help Ossoff be able to hold on and win this race. Though Georgia is still a toss-up race in my current rankings. On the governor side of things, again, I think there would be some Republicans that would not want to vote for Raffensperger that are very pro for President Trump, but ultimately I do think Raffensperger would still hold on and win the Georgia governor's race by a lean Republican margin, even maybe a tilt Republican margin, because I think the Georgia governor's race has a better chance of going red than the Senate race does, seeing as it is an open race and they are not facing a Democratic incumbent that is strong like Ossoff is. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below telling me your thoughts and any future video ideas you'd like to see me go over. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video.